So selecting the right wood for your project is actually one of the most important decisions you're going to make. But without sounding too dramatic, this decision right now is what will determine the final outcome of your piece. Granted, it can seem a little bit overwhelming for some people because there are a lot of different kind of woods to choose out there. So in this video, we're going to break it down into segments. First, we're going to discuss what your piece actually is, colors and species of wood, how the grain is going to interact with it, things to consider when it comes to workability, and then we'll break down a few topics to discuss later. So figuring out what it is that we're building is probably the perfect time to introduce the next project that I'm going to be building here on YouTube. So obviously, before you can start selecting your material, you kind of need to know what it is that you're actually building, where it's going, what its environment is like, other things around the piece. And what's also going to be a determining factor is the piece for you or is it for a client? You also want to know what style or what piece it is that you're making. Are you making a dining table or are you making a chest of drawers? Because they're two completely different things that may need different hardness levels of wood. Another important thing to understand is it going to be indoors or is it going to be outdoors? Now, I stopped building outdoor furniture a long time ago because it's just not what I do. I like really fine, finicky things, and outdoor furniture is a whole other ball game. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm actually about to start the next project for the main channel over on YouTube. And it's actually inspired this video because we're talking about grain and color and all that kind of stuff. But it might interest some of you because I feel like I've seen a bunch of people commenting that they're a little bit over seeing the white oak projects or the walnut projects. Realistically speaking, these are actually the most popular woods, not just on YouTube, but in clients' homes as well. Which made me start thinking, what happened to red wood? No one wants red wood furniture anymore. But 15, 20 years ago when I was building furniture, everyone loved it. I used to build a lot of slab tables. I actually specifically used to work for a company that only built slab furniture. And red timbers were the most popular by far for dining tables. So it kind of got me thinking that I want to build something in a red wood, but make it look somewhat modern. So that's where Jarrah comes in. Now, Jarrah is an Australian native wood, and I've been wanting to build a piece of furniture out of this for quite some time. But it wasn't until I had my interview with the designers in my previous video that you may have seen over on YouTube. There was a bit of discussion around mixing different kinds of woods and how it can kind of look a little bit amateurish sometimes. If it's not done tastefully, it doesn't look all that great, but it kind of got me thinking that I want to have a bit of a challenge here. So I thought, let's just continue the red theme and mix it with another red wood. So what we're going to do is go with some Tasmanian myrtle. This is another Australian native. It's a beautiful wood, actually. This is a floorboard because it's actually really hard to get, but Britain Timbers came through right at the last minute, which is pretty awesome. But this will do for what it is that I'm gonna make. Now, I wanted to add some extra embellishments into this piece as well. And I thought, what better way to try and tie these two pieces of wood in with a completely different material and really lean into the red theme even more and go with a little bit of copper. Okay, so we're going to do some accents with some copper in this project, as well as try and tie everything together with some black veneer accents too. Now, that's a lot of shit that's going on right now, and it kind of goes against everything that was mentioned in the previous video for the dining table. When everyone's saying to keep it simple, it's kind of stupid that my next video is overcomplicating the crap out of things again. But this is a great example of where the project itself can sometimes dictate the material choice. There's a lot of different elements going on here, and the best project that I can think of to be able to combine them all is a project that needs different colors in it in order to work. So I'm actually going to build a chessboard for the next piece. Obviously, these two colors of wood here are going to make the playing surface, and then we'll figure out ways in where we can add some nice accent pieces to help tie it all in together. But personally, I do actually think that all of these work quite well. This is an experiment. This is kind of like an exercise in different woods and unpopular woods as well. Like I said, red isn't the most popular wood at the moment, but it's going to be interesting to see what we can learn along the way. Now, understandably, different wood species can be really daunting, okay? But the reality is you don't need to know every single species out there in order to start building some furniture. What helps is to break it down by color. Generally speaking, if you have a client, they're going to come to you saying that they want a particular color for the wood, or they have a particular palette happening in their home. If you're building something for yourself, you're exactly the same. You have a particular palette in your home. And it's really important to understand what material is even available for you. Different regions are going to have different woods and different natives and all of that kind of stuff. One thing that I find really helpful to have at all times is samples. Now, for years, I had the most common samples that I would use. I actually made these blocks that are all the same out of different types of wood. It's really nice because you can just hang them up on the wall like this. And I used to have them up near the main entrance to my workshop so clients could see them as they come in. But like I said, you only need the ones that you're really going to be using, okay? Don't be a smartass like me and think that you need to make samples for every available species that your supplier has. It doesn't make any sense. If a client walks into your workshop and you show them all of these samples, all that's going to do is confuse them. And that's not what this is about. You want to make the process of your client choosing the right wood as easy as possible. But one thing, on a bit of a side note, that I did find really helpful for when clients came in is I've actually got different types of manufactured boards here as well. So I've got some MDF that's got polyurethane on it. I've got some black melamine. I've got some different types of plywoods here and a piece of veneer on some chipboard. The reason why is when you're talking about these different kinds of products, your client might not know what the hell you're talking about. So it's really important to be able to show them. What I also found to be a big help was to have all of these samples up on the wall as well, okay? So I've essentially got different blocks here with different edge profiles. So I've got a 3mm round over, I've got a 6mm round over, and I've got a 12mm round over. I've got a chamfer sample here somewhere. I've got a sample of what a miter joint looks like. This is another great thing and a really professional thing for if you're running a shop or you have clients, for them to be able to see these. Another important thing to have on hand is if you can contact your veneer suppliers. As much as I'd love to be able to give you direct links to this stuff, it depends where you are in the world, okay? If you're in Australia, this book is from Briggs Veneers, but it's basically got every kind of veneer that they have available. But more importantly, it's just a sample book. It shows me what different types of colors and types of woods there are available. And this really helps when deciding what material I want to use for my next project. In fact, for this chessboard, I knew that I wanted to use Jarrah, but I went through this entire book and then found Tasmanian myrtle and then thought, yes, that's what I want to use. Got in touch with Britain and they sent me out some of those pieces. So you can see how helpful having a book like this actually is. I'll also leave some links below to different websites that'll have different samples on their website. All right, Britain Timbers is one of them, and then there's the Wood Database. You may know that one already. Understanding color is one of the key factors in knowing what type of material to use. And then once you know the kind of color, that can sort of direct you to what species you want to go with. If you're looking for a blonde timber, then that opens up some options, say of white oak or European oak or some maple. If someone's looking for a brown wood, generally speaking, walnut is kind of the way to go, one of the best looking ones. Here in Australia, walnut is very expensive. It usually scares clients off, to be completely honest. So one of the other options that people tend to usually go with, even though it's not really chocolatey brown, is Tasmanian blackwood. You may have seen it in some of my previous videos. It's another beautiful looking wood, but basically once you know what color that you want to be using, that will narrow down the species list quite substantially. Then there's other factors that you need to start deciding. Like, what is the piece going to be? If it's a dining table, it's going to need some pretty hard wood to go along with it. That's when you can start looking at what's called the Janka rating. So wood is measured using the Janka hardness test. You'll notice on Britain's website and the Wood Database's website that they give a rating with each species. Basically, the higher the number, the harder the wood, lower number, the softer the wood. Then another important factor to deciding what wood you want to use is the grain. Now, to me personally, grain is one of the biggest things in developing the look of whatever it is that you're making. The way I see grain is it's kind of like the personality of your piece. So we'll break this down into a couple of different sections here. But first of all, you want to know, what do you want out of the grain? Do you want it to look intense or do you want it to look subtle? If you're looking for a subdued look out of your piece, and in my opinion, a straight grain or a subdued grain lets the design do more of the talking, like in the dining table that I recently built. Or you can choose a wood that has some crazier grain, so a crown cut. And that tends to let the material do more of the talking and tends to take away a little bit from the design itself. Of course, depending on what the piece is. Now, another important thing to discuss when it comes to grain, as well as color continuity, is where does your board sit amongst the rest of the material? You want your best looking boards and most consistent looking grain and colored boards to be sitting in areas that are going to be seen the most. Now, if you're going to be gluing a bunch of boards together for, say, like a cabinet top or a dining table top or something like that, you want to ensure that those boards that are going next to each other all have similar grain and similar color within the board. Now, anyone that's used a material like walnut before can know that there can be some pretty big variances between the grain and the tones in the wood. Even a straight grain material like Tasmanian oak has so many different color variances of pink and green and brown throughout it. It's really important to ensure that you can get that material as consistent as possible. But basically, the grain of wood will give your project its own voice, okay? And it's up to you whether you want to decide if that's a loud voice or a soft voice. Straighter grain material is going to have the soft voice, more intense looking grain is going to have a loud voice. So this isn't exactly a huge factor that plays in my material choice, but that's because I kind of have machinery that can handle almost any wood that I put through it, but that's not the case for everybody. So it's really important to understand that some material is going to make life a lot more difficult. Now, if you're doing client work and you're charging out your time, that's a huge factor to take into consideration. There might be all these other hidden costs on top of having to use a material that's going to be really difficult to process. Not to mention the fact that some woods just move, okay? It doesn't matter how they've been processed, doesn't matter if they've acclimated to your shop. And that's a funny thing about wood as well. You can have a board where the majority of that board is dead stable and the grain is behaving nicely, but then you can have some areas where it's just not. Okay, and it wants to move and it wants to crack and do all of these things. That is just the natural material that wood is. And the more you do woodworking, the better you'll get at reading grain and understanding where those areas are. But those kind of woods that want to move around can be kind of dangerous to work with as well. I'm sure a lot of you have experienced pushing a board through a table saw and not wanting to close in on the blade. It's not fun when that sort of stuff happens. But there are also some woods out there that, not just from a milling perspective, but from an assembly perspective, there are certain oily woods out there that may need some extra work or some extra steps taken before you can glue pieces together. There are some woods out there that are prone to chip out. So if that's the case, you need to be a little bit more careful with how you're processing that wood. You might want to put some backing boards behind your material when pushing it through a table saw, or be really careful when using a router. But yeah, woods with intense grain structure might mean you have grain running in different directions in the one piece. So that ends up making it really difficult to use things like hand tools. I mean, I can already see by looking at some of this Tasmanian myrtle that there's grain running in different directions. And part of one board is straight grain and another part isn't. So I only imagine that there's going to be a few surprises to find in this material. But yeah, that's going to be interesting to see. Now, of course, there is the ethical and sustainable discussion to the wood selection topic as well, okay? It's up to you to ensure that wherever you're getting your material from, that it's coming from a reputable source. And this is even more so when it comes to rare and exotic species. You want to ensure that the people that you're dealing with are credible. Now, the unfortunate thing about woodworking is there's always going to be a little bit of waste, but it's up to us to ensure that we're minimizing that waste as much as possible, once again, especially when it comes to rare and exotic species. Basically, if you're going to be building for clients, then your material selection is going to be a little bit more limited because your clients are going to want what's popular and what's in at the moment. So that's generally going to be your white oaks, your walnuts. If you're building things for yourself, then one of the best things that you can do is just experiment, because you're now going to live with it and you can see why it's good to do that and why it's not good to do that. So that's actually what I'm doing now with this chessboard. I'm experimenting with a wood that I've never used before, Tasmanian myrtle, so I'm very excited about that. And I'm experimenting with a color combination that I haven't done before either. I mean, there's a really good chance that this isn't going to work, but that's the fun of experimenting. Like I said at the beginning of this video, selecting wood is one of the very first steps that you're going to go through when designing and building your piece. So hopefully there was some bits of good advice in this video. And if you want to leave some comments about videos that you'd like to see in the future, please let me know, because that'd be a big help to me. Please, it's a new channel, so if you want to help me out by liking, subscribing, and all of that kind of stuff, that would be amazing. All right, thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to the next video.